everybody, and welcome I should say to 11-4, sorry. Um, Here we will see World War One wrap up in this one. And Woodrow Wilson, president during World War One, and he actually died about a year and a half after the war ended. I guess the weird thing with him, I was say it's weird, but he ran for his second term for re-election on saying he kept us out of the war. And the irony, I guess, is that he brought us into the war under in his second term. Many people think there's really no way we could have not gotten in the war and just sat back and watched our good ally Britain and our ally France just sit there and just get annihilated. It wouldn't have gone well for the American vision of how the world would or ought to be moving forward after World War One. So people can criticize Wilson for that, but the reality is that we didn't have much of a choice. We pretty much had to get involved in World War One. Wilson came up with the 14 points, and this was his plan for world peace and prosperity after World War One was over. And it's really hard to argue if you take a look at many of these. A lot of it's about borders and things like that. But other things like open diplomacy, freedom of the seas, which is in response to the German submarine warfare. Removal of economic barriers. Let's trade more. Reduce arms. All these things were fantastic. Seemed to be pretty good. And then the last one, the creation of an association of nations, and that's called the League of Nations. Not the United Nations yet. That doesn't happen until after World War II. First, it's the League of Nations. And speaking of which, this was an international peacekeeping organization proposed by Woodrow Wilson and founded in the 1920s. The USA did not join. The United States was so disgusted by all the brutality and the death and pretty much the senselessness of the killing in World War One, and they felt, a lot of the American public felt, look, we got dragged into this. It wasn't our war. We probably never should have got involved. Why do we want to be involved in an international body? It's just going to pull us into more problems. It's just going to mean the possibility of more wars. We want to sit back in the United States and we want to be our own. We don't want to be involved in anyone else's business. You guys, do your thing. We'll do our thing, but we're not going to join an international league, and stick our nose in other people's business. That's how we started World War One in the first place. And so many people in the United States did not want to join. And in fact, when Wilson was out campaigning, saying, "Hey, come on, United States, let's go join. Tell your senator we want to join," he actually got sick on one of the uh, voyages and just going across the country in a train, had a stroke, and he never recovered. Some people argue if that hadn't happened, then Wilson might have been able to push us into the League of Nations through his force of his speaking, but I guess we will never know. Georges Clemenceau, the French leader, David Lloyd George, the British Prime Minister, and those two were the main people driving the Treaty of Versailles. And the Treaty of Versailles is a treaty that ended World War One. The U.S. did not sign the treaty. It's very important. The U.S. felt, and this is very important, the U.S. felt the terms were too unfair to Germany and thought that the treaty would just lead to another war in the future, which is exactly what it did. The United States warned the French and the British, saying, look, if you guys impose these terms of the treaty, which we'll see in a second, it's going to be really bad. Germany is going to be embarrassed. You're going to humiliate their people. And you're just going to create a very, very strong desire for revenge. Don't do it. It's dumb. Hold up the olive branch. Make Germany feel welcome. Let's not create another war just a few years later, which is exactly what happened less than 20 years later, as we see World War II break out. Well, lesson learned, I hope. Part of the thing that Germany had to do was reparations, which was payment made by defeated countries after the war. Well, guess what country was the only one still around from the other side? You had the Ottoman Empire, which was destroyed. The Austro-Hungarian Empire broken apart. It was just Germany. And so Germany had to pay ridiculous, just ridiculous amounts of money, 55 billion. As you can see in this cartoon, there's Germany under these huge bag of reparations, and it says, "Let's see you collect it," saying, "Come on, we are broke, our country's just been in war for years and years and years. We have so many people dead. Our economy's in ruins, and now you want us to pay you 55 billion? Yeah, I don't think we have that kind of money. Well, the war guilt clause was another slap in the face to Germany, and it is part of the Treaty of Versailles that stated Germany had to take 100% responsibility for the war. Now, I think most of us know that it very, very rarely is 100% responsibility on any one side. Sometimes, but particularly when you're in a war, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. And you could say, well, it may have been Germany a lot of responsibility for the war, but to be completely and no one else at all responsible for the war, it just seems like just ridiculously unreasonable. It just seems to really defy reality to actually believe that. And that's one of the main reasons the United States did not sign the Treaty of Versailles. Well, Henry Cabot Lodge, remember we mentioned that the United States did not join the League of Nations? Well, he was one of the people who wanted to keep the U.S. out of the League of Nations. And that is it. Thank you for watching.